All right, I'm getting to this party a little bit late. Nevertheless, I'm here now, and I got a question. Is Tyrese correct that there is a federal hate crime law just for Asians? Or is Tyrese just the latest victim or purveyor of disinformation? Stay with me. I'm going to clear up this confusion. Hello, everybody. I am attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. Each and every week, we bring you at least one legal analysis of some trending story regarding politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower you with the information you need to defy this unjust legal system and to nullify systemic racism. If that interests you, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell so you'll get notified every time we drop one of these videos. So before we get into this video, please go to Amazon.com, grab your copy of my book, Education in Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need to know everything that I talk about in this book so that you can be your son's most fierce and strongest advocate. You will thank me later. All right, so is Tyrese correct? Is there a federal hate crime law on the books just for Asians? Or is he the latest victim or even purveyor of disinformation? I'll say this. If in fact he is a purveyor of disinformation, I believe it's unintentional. I think this is a great guy. Obviously, I don't know him personally, but I think he's a great guy. But he said some things that I need to investigate as a civil rights lawyer, as someone who practices law, civil rights specifically. Is he correct? Let's listen to what Tyrese had to say about this.
I mean, the moment that President Biden became the president, he signed it into law to protect the Asian community. What is that law that he signed?
Anti-Asian hate crime bill.
President Biden and Kamala Harris signed an Asian hate crime bill, which makes it beyond illegal to ever purposely and maliciously do anything to anybody in the Asian community. And there was a spike in crimes, criminal behavior in and around COVID, allegedly and specifically motivated by Trump. And so everybody started treating Asians, beating them, killing them, shooting them, stabbing them, hurting them. And then he gets into the White House, skips over every black and brown Mexican and Latino that have been getting killed like flies, and he makes it a law. Asian hate crime bill. It's signed into law. So whether you're a police officer or a regular civilian, if you wake up on a Wednesday and say, he's Asian, a woman or a man, let's go do something bad to them, which God forbid would ever happen again. But it is a crime bill that was signed into law that protects Asians at all costs. Where is that same fucking law to be signed into the...
All right. So you heard in his own words, Tyrese making a passionate statement about there being an anti-Asian hate crime law. And that was Ben Crump in the background, all right, who told him what the law is that he was referring to, all right? So I need you to listen to me carefully. Because as you see here, Mark Twain once said, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. And that's especially true in the age of social media, right? So let me tell you this up front. Tyrese is mistaken. There is no hate crime law for Asians only. If there is, then I got some more information for you here in just a second. All right, so let's get into this video. So let's begin with a hate crime law that is oftentimes used to prosecute people for committing hate crimes. It is the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd hate crime law. And you see the two folks that this law is named in honor of. Matthew Shepard was a gay guy who was murdered because he was gay. James Byrd obviously was an African-American person who was murdered because of his race. So both of them were victims of hate crimes, one for his sexual preference and the other one because of his race. Now, let's take a look at the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act of 2009. It says, and this is a paraphrase, it says, anyone who harms or attempts to harm someone because of their actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, or disability using a fire, a gun, or a weapon can be jailed for up to 10 years, fined, or both. If the crime results in death or involves kidnapping, sexual abuse, or attempted murder, the person can be jailed for life. These crimes can also be prosecuted if they involve crossing state lines, using interstate commerce, or interfering with business or economy. Now, just stay with me here. So that is the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act of 2009. Now, in 2022, this law was amended to include the Emmett Till anti-lynching law, which basically could impose a 30-year sentence if someone was found guilty of lynching. It was a long time coming, but finally Congress got that passed. Now, let's go to another federal law, and this is the one that people are out here confusing or intentionally just misleading folks about. It is called the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, 34 USC, Section 30501. Now, let's look at what it says. This statute directs the Department of Justice to speed up the review of hate crimes. For bringing charges, the department must also work to improve the reporting of hate crimes and hate incidents in light of the rise in anti-Asian hate during the COVID-19 pandemic. To meet this goal, the law requires the department to reach out to law enforcement agencies and to provide them with helpful tools and resources for reporting, enforcing, and preventing hate crimes. That's the DOJ. Now, some people mistakenly call this the Anti-Asian Hate Crime Act or hate crime law, implying that its protections are exclusively to Asian Americans. That is false. That is false. That is false. Let's keep reading. While the law was indeed passed in response to the surge in anti-Asian violence during the COVID-19 pandemic, its provisions apply broadly to all groups affected by hate crimes, regardless of race or ethnicity. Furthermore, the Department of Justice utilizes general hate crime statutes, which apply to all groups to prosecute anti-Asian hate crimes. Notably, the word Asian is absent from both the title and the main body of the statute. Now, you will find the word Asian in the statutory notes, but in the actual enforceable law itself, you will not find the word Asian. The title doesn't include the word Asian, nor does the law itself, the enforceable part of it. What the DOJ does is use other general hate crime statutes to prosecute anyone who perpetrates hate crimes against Asians. Not this. Let me go back. DOJ does not use the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, also known as the Anti-Asian Hate Crimes Law, does not use this law here to prosecute people who commit anti-Asian hate crimes. No, there are other statutes that they use for that, including the one we looked at initially, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act, but not this one. And this one, again, does not specify Asian Americans as being the only victims of this particular statute. Now, it is true that a sharp increase of hatred toward Asian Americans caused Congress to pass this act, but Congress did not make it specifically for Asian Americans. That is a lie. That's disinformation. And it's disinformation that folks have used to try to get people not to vote. It is incorrect. It is a lie. It is a bold-faced lie. Now, if you don't believe me, let's do a little bit of mental gymnastics here. So, if I were to ask you, is this COVID-19 so-called anti-Asian hate crime law, if it is, in fact, targeted specifically for Asian Americans, and you said yes, then my next question would be, why? And then I presume you would say, well, because it came about as a result of hate crimes against Asians. So then I would say, okay, so you're saying that this law specifically applies to Asian Americans because it came about because of the violence Asian Americans suffered. Is that what you're saying? And if you said yes, then I would say, okay, well, based on that, there are many, many, many anti-Black hate crimes laws that have been passed because of hate crimes that Blacks have suffered. Many. And then if you say, well, okay, now that you explained that, I won't say that this applies just to Asians. Then my response is going to be, you've been lied to. And that's exactly what I'm telling you. You've been lied to. These pro-Black YouTube imposters have lied to you. You can't have it both ways, right? Either it applies only to Asian Americans or it doesn't. And if you argue that it does because it came about as a result of anti-Asian hate, then again, you got to admit that there are many anti-Black hate crime laws on the book because there are many anti-Black hate crime laws on the book that came about as the result of hate crimes that Blacks have suffered. So which one is it? Have you been lied to? Or there truly are anti-Black hate crime laws already on the book? And that then goes to this issue of whether or not the Democratic Party has done anything for Blacks, because many of these anti-Black hate crime laws came about as a result of the work of the Democratic Party. All right, let's keep working it. So this is the so-called anti-Asian hate crime bill. The real name for this is the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, because a lot of the anti-Asian violence began happening right around COVID. And Congress intentionally did not include the word Asian in the title, nor in the enforceable part of the law, because Congress wants this law to apply to everyone, not just Asians. All right, so now what exactly does this bill do? It has four main purposes. The bill requires the DOJ to fast-track hate crime reviews and provide guidance to law enforcement on online reporting, data collection by race or origin, and public education. Notice, doesn't say anything about Asians, because this applies to any victim of a hate crime. Second, it mandates raising awareness of hate crimes during the COVID-19 pandemic. Once again, Asian is not in this particular sentence at all, because the law applies to everyone. Third, the bill also establishes grants for state-run hate crime hotlines and supports crime prevention programs. That applies to everyone, any victim regardless of race, regardless of any other characteristic of a victim of hate crime. Race, national origin, ethnicity, sexual preference. This law applies to all of those categories. Okay? Fourth, courts may order hate crime offenders on supervised release to attend educational programs or community service. So every one of these purposes that I just read you for the so-called anti-Asian hate crime law does not apply just to Asian Americans. So it's not true that there is a specific anti-Asian hate crime law. That's not true. All right? Let's look at some more hate crime laws because there are many. There are many, and most of them came about as a result of hate crimes that Black people were experiencing. All right? So let's look at one, for example. Damage to religious property, the Church Arson Prevention Act, 18 U.S.C. 247. It says, this statute prohibits the intentional defacement, damage, or destruction of religious, real property because of the religious nature of the property, where the crime affects interstate or foreign commerce, or because of the race, color, or ethnic characteristics of the people associated with the property. The statute also criminalizes the intentional obstruction by force or threat of force of any person in the enjoyment of that person's free exercise of religious beliefs. The source of that information is the Department of Justice. Incidentally, in the statutory notes of this bill, Congress specifically references African American churches. So what I'm saying to you is this particular statute that finds it a federal hate crime if someone damages or destroys a church came about as a result of the many Black churches that had been bombed and burned down through the 90s and even before that. So if you're going to say that the COVID-19 Hate Crime Prevention Act is specifically for Asian Americans because it came about as a result of them being victims of hate crimes, then you must say that this statute that we just read is specifically for Black people. And we know it's not because it specifically says race, color, ethnic characteristics, or just because it is a religious property. If it's used for religion, then someone can be found guilty for destroying or defacing that religious building. So this applies to everyone. It is just like the anti-Asian hate crimes bill. It applies to everyone. So I'm driving home the point that that bill, the COVID-19 Hate Crime Prevention Act, also known as the Anti-Asian Hate Crime Bill, does not apply just to Asians, although it came about as the result of the crimes committed against Asians specifically around COVID-19. All right, let's look at some more, because there are a lot of them that came about as a direct result of violence committed against African American people. All right, here's another one. Conspiracy against rights, also known as the Civil Rights Act of 1871, also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. So in 1871, Congress came up with the Ku Klux Klan Act because the Ku Klux Klan was in existence at that time. It had been birthed during the redemption period right after Reconstruction. And the Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK, was committing all types of violence against African American people. So Congress came up with the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. And it was specifically because of harm committed against African American people. Yet in the body of the statute, it does not say African American only, just like it doesn't say Asian in the body of the COVID-19 Hate Crime Prevention Act. All right. So I don't understand why it's such a big deal that these laws apply to a broad base of people. Now, I get it, and I want to acknowledge this, that next to Native Americans, African American people have been the most persecuted and have experienced the most violence of any group of people in this nation. And there are people, therefore, who believe that there should be a bill that says anti-black hate crime bill or hate crime law. I get it. And I have no problem with that. I could get behind that. I would like to see that too. However, as an attorney, I understand that these other people deserve protection as well. My problem would be if the Department of Justice was not using these hate crime statutes to protect Black people. But I know they do. My firm has asked the Department of Justice to get involved in several cases. Okay, so I know that the DOJ, depending on who's in there now, I will say that, right? Because Trump and his crowd, they did not prosecute people who committed hate crimes against African Americans. They started using the Department of Justice to prosecute people who were, in their minds, committing reverse discrimination against white people. And that's exactly what they intend to do if they get back into the White House. All right. So again, for the record, I see no problem. I'm on board with there being an anti-Black hate crime bill. But as an attorney, I know that that is difficult to occur because of the Constitution. Our Constitution has prohibitions against doing any one thing for one group of people. Now, we know it has been done in the past, even for Blacks. But in this political climate that we're living in now, with this MAGA crowd and this GOP and Project 2025 crowd, they will challenge any and everything that is targeted for Black people only, especially when you got 6 deeply conservative right-wing justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. So while I would love to see that, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, especially again with the court that we have right now and all these federal judges that Trump put in place. You want to know why? Because many of you voted the couch. Many of you listened to these pro-Black imposters and allow them to stack the deck. And it's the reason why I'm on YouTube all the time trying to get you to see this the correct way so you don't make that same mistake and allow them to further stack the deck. All right, let's go back and look at several more of these federal hate crime laws that indeed were passed because of violence committed against Black people specifically. So this says, if 2 or more people conspire to harm, threaten, or intimidate someone in any U.S. jurisdiction to stop them from exercising their rights under the Constitution or U.S. law, or because they have exercised those rights, or if 2 or more people disguise themselves on a highway or someone else's property with intent to stop someone from exercising their rights, you know how the Ku Klux Klan wear these sheets and hoods and all of that, they can be fined or imprisoned for up to 10 years or both. If their actions result in death involving kidnapping, sexual abuse, or attempted murder, they can be fined, imprisoned for any length of time, or for life, or even sentenced to death. All of this came about as the result of crimes committed against African Americans. And see, let me address another thing. It doesn't bother me that these statutes apply to other people because they got rights too under the Constitution. And that doesn't lessen the impact and import of these laws because they protect other groups of people. Now, what those pro-Black imposters tell you is they're not real tangibles because they're not exclusively for Blacks. You know what? You gotta just reject that type of foolishness. That's foolishness. And again, that's coming from someone who has practiced law for several decades at this point. All right, you got to reject that. Why do you continue to listen to that stuff? These laws are powerful, powerful laws that are used to protect African American people every day. Would I like to see an anti-Black hate crime statute? Yes, but again, it won't have any more impact than what we already have on the books. We already have some very powerful laws on the books as I speak. All right, let's look at another one. Deprivation of rights, 18 U.S.C. 242. This was used to prosecute Derek Chauvin for murdering George Floyd. It says, if someone under the authority of any law, that's a police officer, that is a warden of a jail, that is the bailiffs in the courthouse, or the correction officers in the prisons, anyone under any authority of law or regulation intentionally denies another person their constitutional rights or imposes different punishments based on race, color, or alien status, they can be fined or imprisoned for up to 1 year. If bodily injury, use of a weapon, or threats are involved, the sentence increases to up to 10 years. If death, kidnapping, or sexual abuse occurs, they may face life in prison or the death penalty. Now watch this. This is a criminal statute, but right along with it is 42 U.S.C. 1983, which provides a civil remedy for official violation of one's civil rights. This is the one we use to sue cops or correction officers or anyone under the authority of the law who violates the civil rights of our clients. So what we read above, the deprivation of rights, 18 U.S.C. 242, is a criminal statute. Section 1983, on the other hand, is a civil statute, which brings about civil remedies, which, by the way, oftentimes is undercut and undermined by something we call qualified immunity, which we need to get rid of by voting in Kamala Harris and a lot of Democrats so that we can get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act through both chambers of Congress and get it signed by Kamala Harris so that qualified immunity no longer protects rogue police officers when they commit excessive force or police brutality types of offenses. And by the way, we need to elect Kamala Harris because unlike Trump, she will not give police officers criminal immunity from prosecution. Both of those are really important. So we need to elect Kamala Harris, and we need to give her a majority in the Senate and a majority in the House. All right? So these laws have been passed because of Black people, but it's no problem that they apply to anyone who is victimized on the basis of one of these classes. Then there's the Criminal Interference with Right to Fair Housing Act. Did you know that someone can be prosecuted for interfering with your housing rights? For example, someone burning a cross on your yard. Well, they can be prosecuted for that. How did that come about? Because of things that had happened to Black people. All right? So this is another one that came about as a result of Black folks. It doesn't have the name Black in it, doesn't have that word in it, but it has been used powerfully to protect Black homeowners and other races of people. So these are just a few of the laws that have been passed to protect African American people. I mean, they're on the books because of things that were happening to Black people. So back to Tyrese. Tyrese was wrong, and I believe unintentionally, when he said that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had signed into law a hate crime bill that protects Asians only. That is not true. And I just showed you that isn't true. Now it's up to you whether you're going to believe the truth. All right. So thank you for listening to this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until the next time, I am Attorney Augustus Corbett. Peace.